everybody! This tutorial covers lesson number 7 from GoSTEM's Creative Computing Kit. And the title is Retelling Nursery Rhymes and Life Cycles. And as all of the lessons, this lesson has been adapted from the Computer Science in San Francisco curriculum. And the objectives for the lesson are that students will retell stories and life cycles orally, and also retell stories and life cycles by programming BBOT sequences. The materials you'll need for this lesson include the lesson plan, and a nursery rhyme cards and life cycle cards. And speaking of these nursery rhyme cards and life cycle cards, in the kit we've provided master hard copies and digital copies with numerous nursery rhyme scenes and life cycles. You will decide which nursery rhymes or life cycles to cover. Then you'll need a set of those squares for each group. And then each student will need a sequence planning sheet and then the related stickers. So this is what the master looks like. This is what they look like cut up, and then the students will cut the arrows off of their strip. And then you'll need a 3 and 4 button sequence sign or signs. And then of course the star of the show, we've got the BBOTs here. You'll need a driver lanyard for each group. And then you'll also need a BBOT mat for each group. And then lastly, the computer science badge chart. Blank story templates are also provided in the digital materials list, so you can use stories your class has recently studied for maximum cross-curricular impact. So what you could do is you could, in this is actually a slide, a Google slide, and you could create new squares digitally, or you could have students draw on these blank templates and then cut them apart. Welcome your students back once again for one more lesson in creative computing, where you're all learning the power of computers and how they can help us solve problems and to express ourselves. Now, last time we were studying creative computing, we used the Very Hungry Caterpillar story to help to learn to program our BBOTs using 3-button sequences. Now remember, telling a computer what to do is also called programming. So remember, we wiggled our fingers when we said that word. So to warm up your students, let them know that the BBOTs told you before they all got here that they really want to learn what you're all learning. And since we're learning about nursery rhymes, let's prepare to teach our BBOTs about nursery rhymes. And to do that, we're going to play a little game. We're going to play a game called Beginning, Middle, and End. So let's think about the nursery rhyme, Hey Diddle Diddle. So remember that nursery rhyme in the beginning? What was in the beginning? Right, the cat and the fiddle. Hey diddle diddle, the cat and the fiddle. So that was number 1, that was the beginning. And in the middle, what happened? That's it, the cow jumped over the moon. And then what happened? The little dog laughed, so that's also in the middle. So we kind of have 2 little middle parts. And at the end, yes, the dish ran away with the spoon. So we just told beginning, middle, and end, hey diddle diddle. And then with your students, you might want to do that again with a couple of other nursery rhymes that you've been learning. And then to teach our BBOT stories, we're going to use story squares and BBOT mats. To teach our BBOTs the stories, we will use the story squares and our BBOT mat. You or one of your students can place the story squares underneath the mat from the beginning, the middle, and then the end. And to start out with, you probably just want to start out with 3 squares to keep it simple. And then to teach the Bee-Bot the story, we need to program the Bee-Bot to get from the beginning to the middle to the end. Remember that computer scientists always plan their programs first. So let's start with some planning. We are going to use our planning sheets and our programming stickers. And if your programming stickers are in strips, you'll need some scissors to cut those apart as well. And you're going to notice that there are, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 boxes on our Bee-Bot mat. And then there are also 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 boxes on our planning sheet. So we're going to put numbers on our planning sheet where the story squares are on the big mat. All right, so we're going to start with number 1 for the beginning of the story. So let's think about the nursery rhyme, "Hey diddle diddle, the cat and the fiddle." So the cat and the fiddle is number 1. So we're going to put a number 1 in the same square. "Hey diddle diddle, the cat and the fiddle, the cow jumped over the moon." So the middle is up there in the corner, so we're going to put a 2 for the middle. And the little dog laughed to see such a sight, and the dish ran away with the spoon. So the end of the story is over there in the corner. So I'm going to draw number 3 here in the box. So now we need to figure out which path will we take to retell our Bee-Bot the whole story. There are many ways. So we need to have a student maybe draw an arrow from 1 to 2 to 3, but instead I'm going to do it right now. I'm actually going to begin by putting the Bee-Bot sticker on my mat, and I'm going to have the Bee-Bot facing the direction that I'm going to have the Bee-Bot start out. So I'm going to have the Bee-Bot facing that direction, which is left. So I'm going to have it starting out going to the left, but really to get from box to box, and in order to draw my arrows, I can't go diagonally. I have to have it move like the Bee-Bot would move. So it would go forward and right and left or backward. So if it's already facing this way, forward for the Bee-Bot would go this way. And then I'm going to have it turn again. We can think about left and right. It would turn to the right and it would turn, and then it would have to go 1, 2 steps forward. And now I'm going to have it turn again to the right. It's going to turn to the right and then go 1 and 2 steps forward. And then it will have learned the story from the beginning to the middle to the end. Now let's figure out what directions it has to go by using our stickers. And remember, again, you could have your students draw the arrows in this spot instead. So if my Bee-Bot is already facing that direction, in order to get to the next spot, it needs to go forward. So I'm going to put a sticker down with the sticker going up, meaning that it's going to go forward. So this is a symbol that shows us that the Bee-Bot is going to be programmed to go forward. Now to get it in the direction of the 2, we have to turn it again in the right direction. So we'll have to program the Bee-Bot to turn right. And then it'll be facing the number 2, and we need it to go 1 step forward, then another step forward. But now it's not facing the direction of the 3. We need it to turn. Oh, that's the right side. We need it to turn right again. And then we need it to go 1 step forward and 2 steps forward. And then it will be at the 3. So guess what? We've all just created a sequence of steps to complete a task. We've just created an algorithm, like the origami algorithms a few lessons back. The students have planned their program for the Bee-Bot. Now it's time for them to actually do their programming. And now it's time for them to start handling the Bee-Bot and remind them of the rules around the Bee-Bot, which includes always hold the Bee-Bot with 2 hands. Use the B-bot on the floor. Remove obstacles from the B-bot. Do not push or pull the B-bot. And also take turns. And then you'll remind your students of the 3-button sequence. So for every direction button, we are going to press 3 buttons. And remember, we always start with the X, then we go with the direction button, and then we hit go. So every student will get a chance to have the B-bot move one direction. Review with your students how to take turns using the driver lanyards. And decide on how the students will order themselves with the driver lanyards. You might want to have them go in order of alphabet order or their age or their height or something like that. So when a student is the driver, they're going to follow their planning sheet and input one direction at a time using the 3-button sequence: X, direction, and go. So you'll want to organize your team and let them know that most importantly, they are working together to retell stories to the B-bot. So they need to practice kindness and perseverance. And you know what? There might be mistakes, and that's okay. Even if you make a mistake, you're going to hand the driver lanyard over to the next student, and you'll all work together to get the B-bot back on track. And when you get the B-bot back on track, that's called debugging in computer science. Let's see this in action. I'm going to program my B-bot to take its first step in our algorithm. So I'm going to use my 3-button sequence, which is to press X to clear, and then I'm going to hit the forward button, and then go. Awesome. Then the next student, I would exchange my driver lanyard, and the next step in my algorithm is to turn right. So I'd hit X, and then right, and then go. Oh, there it goes. All right, and then we'd keep going from the beginning of the story to the middle to the end. So after some time with the 3-button sequence, if your students want to spice it up a little bit, you might want to have them try out the 4-button sequence, where each student gets to move the B-bot 2 directions at a time. So they will hit the X button, and then they'll go 2 directions, and then go. Another option would be to use these black squares to create obstacles in your B-bot mat. And these are places where the B-bot cannot go. Over time, the children can repeat this process with new nursery rhymes, with new life cycles, planning, then programming, and retelling a variety of stories to the B-bot. You've come toward the end of the lesson, and it's time to take a little gallery walk and check out all of the hard work that the students have been doing programming their B-bots to retell their nursery rhymes. And as they're showcasing their programs, be sure to have the students retell the story as the B-bot is moving from the beginning of the story to the middle and to the end. And then once you've showcased the learner's work, you're going to ask them some questions like, hey, who would you like to thank today for being kind, or for working hard, or for having some good ideas? And tell us a little bit more about what was hard today and how did you persevere? And once again, it's time to look at the badge chart because you all have worked so hard, and let's celebrate that you all have earned the Retell a Story to a Computer badge. All right, and as always, educators, you have your grab and go card to keep with you, to keep you on track as you're teaching the lesson. And this will do it for lesson 7 and for all of the tutorials. Thanks so much for watching.